Taiwan, I'm Laurel Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. US President Donald Trump appears to have softened his stance on Taiwan and its dominance in the critical semiconductor sector, just days after Taiwanese chipmaker TSMC announced a massive investment in the United States. Joyce Zeng has more.
A change in tone from U.S. President Donald Trump days after appearing with TSMC Chair and CEO C.C. Wei at the White House. Wei was there to announce the Taiwanese chip giant's plan to invest an additional $100 billion in its operations in the U.S. state of Arizona. Now, before this announcement, Trump had repeatedly accused Taiwan of stealing America's chip business, a sentiment that Trump is now repeating once again, but with an important caveat that he does not blame Taiwan for its dominance.
We gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat because they allowed it to happen.
Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump also gave a brief history of the U.S. tech giant Intel, once a dominant force in the industry, but now struggling for years to keep up with competitors like TSMC in Taiwan and Samsung and SK Hynix in South Korea. Back in Taiwan, TSMC's U.S. plans have split public opinion. Some worry Taiwan could lose the upper hand in the globally important industry and erode its silicon shield, the idea that TSMC's dominance can protect Taiwan from threats, including a Chinese invasion. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te, however, has backed the historic investment, saying it strengthens U.S. ties with Taiwan. Remember, this is all coming after weeks of anxiety for the chip sector after Trump threatened to impose tariffs on the critical tech, something TSMC could avoid by manufacturing in the U.S. But amid all these geopolitical forces, TSMC's Wei has clarified that the reason for its investment is first and foremost to meet soaring demand of its customers. Alex Chen and Joyce Zhen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Women's groups are teaming up with the government on International Women's Day to highlight the issue of unpaid labour. In Taiwan, women make up about 80% of family caregivers, shouldering most long-term care responsibilities. While more women between 18 and 44 are now in the workforce, many leave after 45 to care for ageing family members. Advocacy groups say women do 3 times more unpaid work than men. The government plans to boost funding for elderly care, childcare and family leave to help ease the burden. Today marks a year since tougher laws on sexual harassment came into effect. They're meant to bring harsher penalties for bosses and other people in positions of power who sexually harass workers. They also make employers responsible for preventing and addressing incidents. But how much of a difference have the changes made? Louise Watt spoke to Doris Chang, a women's rights activist in Taipei.
It's been a year since Taiwan made changes to its gender equality laws. How do you view the results of those changes?
Obviously, we're very pleased that the laws have been passed. These laws ensure that there are additional protections for victims, the penalties have been increased, and also it shows that society as a whole and the state in particular prioritizes women and minorities' rights, right? In terms of if things happen and they're able to report things. However, the legal reforms primarily address the formal mechanisms that are in place. So they don't really address the underlying societal issues that allowed these incidents to take place in the first place. However, this is not to say that there hasn't been any change whatsoever within civil society or on a societal front. So for example, we can see that there are more victims who are willing to come forth after the Me Too movement. In addition, there have been improvements within Taiwanese civil society to create environments that prioritize and have a better understanding of gender-based violence and power-based violence due to the Me Too movement that occurred last year.
That was Doris Chang, a women's rights activist based in Taipei. As the government continues to debate how to protect women in Taiwan, a traditional Taiwanese opera offers a different perspective on gender, one of fluidity and transformation. On International Women's Day, we see how women step into the roles of fearless warriors, while men master the grace of traditionally female roles. Cadence Caranta reports.
It's a battle of wits and strength on stage, and it's also a challenge to strict gender roles. Spear in hand, this warrior looks like a heroic man, but under the makeup is a woman. In this operatic art form created in Taiwan, women have long played male roles. This warrior on stage is portrayed by Sun Shipei, one of the many women continuing the legacy of Taiwanese opera. For performers like Sun, their transformation begins long before stepping onto the stage.
其实我每次接到不同的角色的诠释的时候，我会先把性别给放下，然后针对这个角色人物的个性还有内在的一个状态，然后去做更多的探讨。演员呢，借由演出在戏台上，将自己的梦把它给演出来，然后呢，我带着观众一起来做梦。
Those dreams come to life when Sun and other female actors become male characters on stage. Those transformations also happen when male actors take on female roles. Taiwanese opera, or 歌仔戏, originated as a male-dominated art form. In the early days, all roles, including female characters, were performed by men. But over time, there was a dramatic shift. Today, it's mostly women who take the stage, with female performers embodying male lead roles. Legends like Yang Lihua have become national icons through their portrayal of emperors, warriors, and princes, leaving lasting impressions on audiences. Some have even made history, like Chen Yalan, who was the first woman to win Taiwan's most prestigious television award in a male category.
这是史上第一位女演员入围金钟奖 最佳戏剧男主角奖，并得奖获此殊荣。
Chen's historic win inspired countless performers. Jian Yulin has led a Taiwanese opera troupe in rural eastern Taiwan for nearly 2 decades. For Jian, Chen's victory was greater than just personal recognition. She says it represents the openness of Taiwanese society.
他并没有说你一定要是男生才能拿到男生的奖，我就觉得台湾这一点让我觉得太赞了。 因为他要的就是一个在舞台上演男生最棒、呈现最好的，他就可以来当视帝。
Taiwanese opera started informally. At first, people would gather around to listen to each other tell stories. Eventually, they set up stages to perform those stories in open spaces next to temples, which have been community hubs for Taiwanese people throughout history. Over the years, opera performances have continued to reflect the lives of everyday people, evolving with society's changing values.
那如果说像以女性反串男性来讲的话，第一个除了多元化之外，我们是一个非常民主的国家嘛，所以我觉得这样的文化以及这样的环境，孕育出这样的人，以及孕育出这样的传统文化出来，它是非常多面向性的东西。
所以有的人会觉得说啊，看男练或怎么练的，不是很奇怪吗？可是我会觉得现在的社会是很自然的事情。
Taiwanese opera has long embraced avant-garde themes, making space for theater groups like this one called Yixin Taiwanese Opera Troupe to experiment with daring same-sex love stories and modern storytelling.
我怎么样让整出戏去说服观众？因为戏曲是要反映人生嘛，我们是在演绎很多人不同的人生。
现在我们人生遇到的很多社会上的一些议题，我们都会把它融入在我们新编戏里面，所以让能够来看戏的观众会更有共鸣，也可以吸引更多年轻的观众进入到剧场，然后去知道说现在的歌仔戏跟以前的是不一样的。
Taiwanese opera is a living reflection of Taiwan's evolving society. As long as society continues to change, Taiwanese opera will continue to grow with it, reflecting social changes and inspiring new ways of thinking. Joseph Wu, Peachy Zhuang, Billy Wu, and Cadence Caranta for TaiwanPlus.
In eastern Australia, Storm Alfred has knocked out power to over 250,000 buildings as it approaches landfall. Though the storm was downgraded from a cyclone to a tropical depression, authorities are warning residents to stay indoors, saying the threat is not gone. Trees and other debris have blown over onto main roads, and emergency workers are scrambling to respond to calls for assistance. Japan's powerboat racing community is chasing new audiences and competitors. But can this fast-paced sport outrun its shadowy reputation? Bryn Thomas reports.
In Japan's Kyoto races, the roar of outboard motors is often only drowned out by the roar of crowds.
生身の人間がボートを操って迫力のあるスピードで水面を走るというところはなかなか他で見ることはないと思うのでレース場に来て見ていただいたらすごいスピード感とか爽快感が楽しめると思うので。
With pilots carving tight corners at upwards of 80 kilometers per hour, accidents are common. At least 30 people have died since the sport's inception in the 1950s. And yet, in Japan, its association with betting is what gives it a bad reputation.
やっぱりギャンブルっていうイメージでちょっとなんか同級生にも選手になるって言えなかった感じです。今はねもうなんか華やかな感じで憧れの世界になってるけど。
Alongside speedway and bike and horse racing, powerboating is one of the few sports people can legally bet on in Japan. But that's led to a number of high-profile scandals. One, in 2020, saw a racer sentenced to 3 years for match fixing.
に対するやはり信用を大きく失ったというのはもう間違いないと思います。それ以上にですね、今私どもではもう二度とそういうことが起きないように、先ほど言ったような対策を取っておるところでございます。
Strict controls are in place to prevent cheating. At the start of a competition week, pilots pass through metal detectors to check for phones before being confined to on-site dormitories to prevent information leaks. They're even required to maintain their own equipment during that period, acting as both competitors and engineers.
やっぱりプロペラだったり整備だったりするのは年齢を重ねていくごとに多分アップしていくから落ちることはないと思うんですね。
Despite a poor reputation, the sport is uniquely inclusive. Men compete alongside women, and pilots as old as 75 race against opponents like Takahashi Suzuka, who is 17.
新鮮ですけど、やっぱ水面に出るとやっぱりみんな一緒なので、年齢の差とかはレースになったらあまり感じないです。
Fans compare the sport to Formula One, and organizers have launched ad campaigns hoping to outpace its reputation and attract new fans.
小さい子供とか小学生、中学生の方もテレビを見てボートレーサー目指したいっていう人が増えてきたので、だいぶメジャーな競技にはなってきたのかなとは思います。
With a new generation of racers and fans turning up to Kyoto events, the sport's future looks bright. Evidence that the excitement of high speed and roaring motors may be enough to leave the scandals of the past in their wake. Ryan Wu and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwanese ultrarunner Tommy Chen has made history, becoming the first athlete from Asia to finish a grueling 617-kilometer race in the Arctic. Chen crossed the finish line in Canada after completing the 6633 Arctic Ultra in just under 8 days. It's an event dubbed the toughest foot race in the world, where athletes battle brutal conditions, including temperatures as low as -50 degrees Celsius. Only about 30% of people make it to the finish line. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with this rescued golden eagle from Tunisia, flying free after months of rehab in a rare conservation effort. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care. See you next time.